For historical context and more information, see the description below.
The other day I saw a television advertisement which was designed to illustrate the speed with which a car using a certain brand of gasoline could pick up and get out into traffic. The point being made was that when we enter the highway, we would better get our cars quickly into the tempo of the other automobiles or we're going to be in trouble. It's a matter of picking up their speed or else. And of course, we live a lot of life on that basis. There's such a hurry and a push to it. And if we are to make our way in it, it seems that we would better pick up the tempo of the rest of the world or else. The consequence has been that even our phraseology, even our conversation has picked up the words of speed. We talk about grabbing a bite of lunch or of catching a train or of running downtown to do some shopping. After my party in the hospital a couple of years ago, one of our men sent me a copy of the book that is entitled The Uses of Ineptitude, or How Not to Want to Do Better. I recommend it to a good many of our men. It will ease your conscience a bit when you come to sundown and you realize that you have only done about half the work that you had set out to do in the morning. In the book, there is a quote, though, from an article that appeared in Fortune magazine to the effect that there was a man who invented a completely new business, the canning and the marketing of Chinese foods. It seems that he built it into a $500,000 business his first year, and now it is the foundation of a $25 million industry that has risen from his initiative. The article said that this man neither drinks nor smokes, begins his working day by picking up the mail at the post office at 5:30 a.m., between production conferences, sales meetings, and other visits to the plant, he tests the flavor of the company's chow mein every 2 hours. He spends his evenings with a dictating machine. And there's nothing in the story to indicate that the last item was his wife. The fact is, though, that this is so much a part of the drive that is America, and although it has produced a certain type of success when we are honest with ourselves, we know that it has also brought about a good many physical and nervous breakdowns, that has brought a spiritual deterioration within the nation. It has brought to us broken homes, and it has brought to us a shallowness of life. One writer looked back over his 50 years of living, and he said that he realized that most of his years had been lived like a man who was constantly changing trains. And then he wrote this little poem about it. Suddenly I realized something terrible, that none of it has been retained. Nothing grasped. My lips have only touched the cup of life, never draining it. I have sunk my teeth into life, never savored it. While ascending, I was constantly seeking to descend. Opening a suitcase, I was already thinking of repacking. Well, most of us know what he's talking about. And we know what the Pennsylvania Dutch mean when they say, the hurrieder I do, the behinder I get. Life can become such a hectic thing, and the hurry of it obscures its purpose and it obscures direction. If you have children or grandchildren, you have probably seen a little book of poems that has come out entitled Prayers from the Ark. It is prayers there that are supposed to be uttered by such creatures as the butterfly and as the cat and the mouse and the horse. But the one that is offered up by the ox is probably the one that is most appropriate to what we're talking about. Dear God, give me time. Men are always so driven. Make them to understand that I can never hurry. Give me time to eat. Give me time to plod. Give me time to sleep. Give me time to think. Now, Jesus was keenly aware of this problem. He knew how important it was to slow down now and then. In the 30th and the 31st verse of the 6th chapter of Mark, it is so modern. The disciples have come back to him just like a sales force that has been out in the fields, and they are giving to Jesus a report of what they have been doing. It seems strange that we should find in ancient Palestine words that are so descriptive of our modern day, because it would appear to be almost impossible to associate what's happening in a great metropolitan area with what might be happening over in Palestine nearly 2,000 years ago. But isn't that verse very modern when it speaks of their coming and going, and they have no leisure so much as to eat? Evidently, Jesus was disturbed by this pressure, and so he said, "Come ye yourselves apart into a desert place and rest a while." He was giving to them an invitation to come apart for a few moments. He was asking them to slow down. Now, this isn't an easy thing to do. And you're listening to one who knows. But I have been exposed to a good many arguments the past couple of years, and some of them are beginning to make a good deal of sense. Another man sent me an article that was on the pleasures of laziness. There are many enlightening reminders in it. It points out, for instance, that when one goes into a restaurant, he would do well to sit back and see who is the laziest waiter. This will be the best waiter because he will bring everything on the first trip. He's only one example. Humphrey Potter, he pointed out, sat beside a crude steam engine, and he let out the exhaust stem at each stroke of the driving rod. It was tiresome work. And so what did he do? He rigged up strings and latches so that the valves could be exposed and they could be shut automatically. And so he lazily discovered the principle of reciprocating valves. As you know, I was brought up on a farm, and some of our vehicles had seats on them. Now, these seats were not invented by energetic farmers. These seats were invented by the lazy farmers. The people of genius, when you read back through their biographies, you discover that a great many of them owed their genius not to energy, but they owed it to laziness. Mark Twain, for instance, did most of his writing when he was sitting or lying in bed. So the article goes on, pointing out the great virtues, and it says that it is the energetic person who is most inefficient because he squanders his time. At the end of the day, he's fatigued out of all proportion to the work done. The hurrieder he does, you see, the behinder he gets. There were so many things in this article that were pointing out the virtues of laziness. I don't want the other ministers to know them, but I'm very happy to have learned them myself. But it is true that we must slow down our pace somehow if we're we're going to grasp anything whatsoever of the significance of what it means to live in a world like this. Jesus taught us to live in the present with concern, but not to live it with anxiety. He said, of course, in the King James translation, to take no thought for the morrow. Now, back in the days when the King James translation was given to us, those words really meant, be not anxious. Don't let yourself worry about the morrow. And the problem is, when we get into a hectic speed in life, we come to the place where we're trying to crowd not only today's worry into today, but we're thinking of tomorrow and next week and years ahead, trying to cram up all of the problems of those times into this day. And this is not Christian. This is what Jesus was talking about. And he said, sufficient unto the day is the evil thereof. We don't have time to hear, you see, what life is trying to say to us in terms of beauty and truth and goodness and purpose. In Dickens' great Christmas carol, the ghost of Marley is trying to save Scrooge from his fate. And so he moaned to him, trying to comfort him. He said, you were always a good man of business, Marley. And the reply came, business? Mankind was my business. The common welfare was my business. Charity, mercy, forbearance, benevolence, these were all my business. But the point that Dickens was making, you see, was that he had discovered all this too late. And this is the tragedy that we find as we go along through life. Some of us learn it in our own experiences. It's very true in the life of a doctor. It's very true in the life of the psychologist that these people come to him, and it's too late for them to recapture what they should have realized years ago. Don't we have men say to us when we ask them to slow down? They say, well, I only have 5 or 10 more years to go in this business. After that, I'm going to retire and I'll enjoy all of life for the rest of my years. Well, the poor misguided creatures. They apparently don't know that life takes on one Hugh at 30 years of age, and one at 40, and one at 50. And what we fail to take time to appreciate at 30 can never be recaptured at 40 and 50. What we do not enjoy in the bringing up of our children when we are parents can never be enjoyed when we are grandparents. What we do not enjoy in the appreciation of life in this great Father's world in which we live, if we don't appreciate it when there's zeal and enthusiasm in it, we're never going to recapture it later. And how frequently we've come upon older people who have intended to do some traveling when the children are away from home. Some kind of illness comes around and they just never get around to it. Robert Frost didn't believe, for instance, in accelerated courses in college, maintaining if there is one thing that we do not need in this world, it is anything that is going to speed it up. And so Robert Frost used to say, I believe this because I believe you must give young people time to catch on. Now this makes sense. Over in Syria and in Palestine with the great rug weavers than which there are none better. A man will sit at the backside and he will pull through the threads, and then every now and then he will rock around to the front to see how the design is coming, to look at the overall pattern. Somehow or other we've got to learn to do this in life. Too much of it we're spending in terms of pulling through the threads, doing these mechanical things, and we're not taking enough time to go around to the front and take a look at the overall pattern. We're not taking enough time to catch on. No democracy can be efficient unless it slows down enough where the individuals are going to catch on to what's expected of them as individual citizens. No home can be a home unless its members slow down enough to know what is expected of fathers and mothers and of sons and daughters. No religion can do very much good unless we have slowed down enough to know how much it means to have those moments of quiet meditation when you can hear the breathing through the pulses of desire, the coolness and the balm. Let sense be dumb, let flesh retire. Speak through the earthquake, wind and fire, O still small voice of calm. Give them a chance, said Frost, to catch on. Maybe some educators need to heed it. For another has put it that the superficiality of the American is the result of this hustling. It needs leisure to think things out. It needs leisure to mature. People in a hurry cannot think. They cannot grow, nor can they decay. They are preserved in a state of perpetual puerility. That's a good combination. Descriptive. Perpetual puerility. Now, how does one slow down? I've learned a good deal about the theory, even though I must confess that the practice is very difficult, and I know that there are some of you to whom I must say, do not do as I do, but do as I say. Certainly one can't just pick up and go for a vacation every time he feels a little fatigued. We have a job to do in this world, and we want to do it, even though we may have been humbled to the extent where we realize that we're not nearly as indispensable as we once thought we were. This doesn't mean that vacations are not essential. There are times when one must literally go apart and rest a bit. But we also have to learn to relax while we're on the job, considering the spirit of the text rather than the letter of it. When night fell, you recall that Jacob had been toiling up the rugged hills of Bethel, and it's about as desolate country as one can find. George Adam Smith describes it as a bare edge of flinty stones rising slab on slab, just one massive staircase of rock. Jacob had been going hard all day long, and he was tired. And so he took a piece of bare rock, he set it down for a pillow, and very soon was asleep. It's a great thing to learn. To learn this business of stopping now and then just where we are and taking advantage of whatever tool may be there. This is Christian practice. Maybe a matter of picking up the telephone and calling one's home and talking for a few moments with one's wife about something other than the announcement that we're bringing a couple of men home to dinner, or to remind her to send a certain suit out to the cleaners. One man told the florist to send his wife 12.5 roses, and the florist immediately gave him his sympathy. And the man said, "What are you sympathizing for? My wife is not sick." "Oh," apologized the florist, "usually husbands don't send flowers to their wives unless they're sick or dead." Imagine that's going to cost me some money. But isn't it true that usually we just don't call home unless there's a crisis of a major or a minor variety? It's something that's come up. The quality of such thoughtfulness is twice blessed. It blesses him that gives and her that takes. It not only lightens the bonds, but it's a good way to slow up a bit. Or one can drop in for a moment to talk with a friend. That's good Christian practice. Deliver us from those who drop in for a moment and stay for an hour. But there's something about a neighborly chat, something about just a few moments with a neighbor that breaks the tension of things, that slows us up a bit. Or probably just to seek the ingredients in our everyday living, those things that speak of something other than tension. We know whether it's in a TV program or a football game, we like excitement, that there should be more room in our living for more quiet meditation, in our reading for more things such as the curfew tolls the knell of passing day, the lowing herd winds slowly o'er the lea, the plowman homeward plods his weary way, and leaves the world to darkness and to me. Good to have something in one's office that you read like that now and then, just to remind them that there are some people who have become great without being such a stew about things. Of course, the greatest book of all is the book. Abraham Lincoln's favorite portion of Scripture was the 37th Psalm. If you haven't a Bible in your offices or very convenient in your homes, make one convenient. And at least for a while, until you have memorized certain portions of it, keep it open at this 37th Psalm. There's something about the words that quiet one, that give him trust, they give him faith, they give him confidence, they give him quiet. Commit thy way unto the Lord, trust also in him, and he shall bring it to pass. I have been young, and now am old, yet have I not seen the righteous forsaken, nor his seed begging bread. Life doesn't seem as hectic or hurried after one has read a great portion like that. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. And of course, piercing the day with prayer, there's a sequel to this story. Remember, Jesus had said, let us go off into the desert and rest a while. And so they started out in the boat, but the crowd had guessed where they were going, and when they arrived at the place, lo and behold, there they were. How frequently our rests are interrupted. We try to get away for a while and we can't get away. And what did Jesus say about that? He said, all right, let it be interrupted. Go ahead and give the people the help they want. This is to be expected. C'est la vie. And after he was finished taking care of them, then he went off to pray. Prayer itself, a way of slowing down. Sometimes it helps to have a favorite place to offer. For Jesus, it was often in the mountains. It was down by the lake. Or perchance it may be in a temple, or it may be in some little chapel somewhere where across the crowded ways of life, where sound the cries of race and clan. The main thing is that Above the noise of selfish strife, one goes to a place where he can hear the voice. That's the important thing. Where we can take some time to be still and to know. There are those who have done it, and they've gone back into life at a less hectic pace because of a renewed confidence in the one who reminds us in so many ways that the important matter is not how quickly we do a thing, but what happens to us while we're doing it. So, oh God, help me to take time to live. May I know that the race is not always to the swift, that there is more to life than increasing its speed. Let me look upward into the branches of the towering oak and know that it grew because it grew slowly and it grew well. Slow me down, Lord, and inspire me to send my roots deep into the soil of life's enduring value, that I may grow towards the stars of my greater destiny. Amen and amen.
We have presented a recording of this morning's worship service from the Shadyside Presbyterian Church, Amberson Avenue and Westminster Place in Pittsburgh. Ministers of the church are the Reverend Dr. Howard C. Scharfe, the Reverend Dr. James H. Blackwood, the Reverend Richard M. Cromie. Organist and choir director was Russell G. Wickman. And today's sermon by Dr. Scharfe was titled, On Learning to Slow Down. Your comments on these services are invited. Addressed to Shadyside Presbyterian Church. And again, next Sunday at 11:06, be listening for another rebroadcast of the regular worship service from Shadyside Presbyterian Church in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.